Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this video we're breaking down Welcome to Derry. Episode 6 is now here, and there's lots of massive things that happen in the entry. We get some major reveals about the past, and also some very big changes to the book. As always, we'll be going through the Easter eggs, hidden details, and things you might have missed. You might have also noticed that I've got a bit of a cold. I'm going to push through it. Bear with me, my voice will sound worse than usual. It will, I promise that, but with that out of the way, thank you for watching. Let's get into Welcome to Derry.
Hello, Mabel.
Now, the episode title was first teased last week on Rotten Tomatoes with the release of the trailer. Announced as In the Name of the Father, we learn a lot about Mrs. Kersh's relationship with the killer clown. Her dad was the original Pennywise, and the clown took his form after the Ironworks explosion. Where we begin is in 1935, which is the cycle of the Bradley Gang massacre. This was a time during the Great Depression, yay, which got blamed on a lot of the kids disappearing. It was the Depression. Most of them probably got tired of eating potato soup or going flat hungry at home and went off riding the rods looking for something better. And ooh, I think I quite like a cold. That sounds sexy. Ooh. Now, this is the segment that Kersh herself alluded to earlier in the season, but as we see, she was well aware of what was going on. Going to Juniper Hill, we see her wake a kid up in the night who we learn has been seeing the clown. Leading her to the basement, she offers her her hand upon hitting the stairwell. In our spoiler section at the end of the video, I will talk about how this plays off a moment in one of the trailers that's going to be coming down the line. But this gesture is very, very important. The scene is also in black and white, which is a great stylistic choice to separate the past from present. It also shows how joyless this asylum is. The 1908 flashback that was all in colour sure had quite a happy childhood, except for getting chased through the woods, obviously. This poor girl, though, is living her worst life in the asylum, and thus her childhood backstory is seen without colour, except for the blood red and orange that's Pennywise's calling card. Travelling into the boiler room, this also felt like a little nod to The Shining, as that was said to be the heart of the hotel, and the scariest place. Pennywise has said he'll meet her, and we see a red balloon then drift to a doorway. The clown then appears, and yeah, a nightmare fuel mate. Now from here we cut to black, but I'm going to treat you, we're going to skip ahead and talk about what we learn later here, as it just makes for a more interesting video, innit? But yeah, as Lilly goes into Mrs. Kersh's house, she travels up to the attic, which is where she learns the truth. In terms of it, ascension and descending is actually used thematically throughout a lot of the story. Normally when characters go up high, they tend to be enlightened and have the truth revealed to them. It's when they descend that things tend to go badly. So trips to the sewers, taking kids to the basement of Juniper Hill, that sort of thing doesn't work out well. This was seen throughout the books lots of times, such as Georgie going into the basement before his death, and Richie encountering the werewolf when entering the basement on Nearbolt Street. The standpipe, of course, overlooks the city as well, and this has provided the characters with a place of refuge. So it's fitting that Lilly learns of the truth of Kersh in the attic. Attic symbolically often represents someone's mind, and we can see the cracks along the top of the roof indicating the fractures in Kersh's. The room is splayed out with memories, and it's basically an orgy of evidence, to use a term from Minority Report. As Lilly goes up the stairs, we can also hear a record playing. It's just like when Bev met Mrs. Kersh in Chapter 2. We've also seen from the trailers that Juniper Hill doctors play records to try and calm the patients before doing something horrible. So it works here really well. Now, while last week's scene mirrored Bev going into the house and sitting down together, this is a big reveal when Mrs. Kersh gets up to go and get cookies. Approaching the table, we also see a teacup and saucer. This is actually a carryover from Chapter 2, as it's the same cup that Mrs. Kersh, or rather Pennywise, drank out of there. And yet, judging by how it takes her form as well, I don't think the whole plan to see her dad again is gonna go too well, mate. What do we say at the channel?
Not a great plan.
Looking over photos from 59 and 60, we see happier times for the Kershes. Again, this is just like Bev, who looked at photos in Chapter 2 and discovered who her father really was. In the book, they say father because they're from Maine. I go, my father. As she looks through the photos, you can also see the musical instruments that young Periwinkle was holding in Episode 3. One of the photos also shows Mrs. Kersh at the Derry Canal Days. This is the same carnival that Bill rushes to in Chapter 2. I also wonder if Pennywise infected Stan's mind, much like we see with Leroy later. They seem like such a happy couple here, but this may have driven a wedge between the pair and caused Kersh to seek comfort in the arms of Hank. But we do have another theory we'll talk about later as well. Kersh has worn red throughout the series though, which was our first clue that she was siding with the clown. including what looked like balloons on her clothing at the diner. Beyond that, Rabies 7765 pointed out that red could also be a scarlet letter, which plays into the ideas of adultery. Now in the book, we see lots of pictures of the pair together. These dates are actually little Easter eggs themselves, as in the miniseries, 59 was when Georgie was killed and 60 was when the rest of the show took place. We then have 1930, which is when the fire at the Black Spot took place at in the book. Finally, we get to 1908 and see a young Periwinkle and her father Bob Gray. Images like this were first shown to us in chapter 2 when Bev looked at Mrs. Kersh's wall. Bev and Lily have actually had lots of similar experiences, with this one feeling exactly like that scene from the movie. Beyond that, they've had moments hiding in cubicles, hearing voices from drains, and yeah, lots of similarities. Because of this, people have even theorized that Lily might be Bev's mum in the movie timeline, as we never actually meet her in the films. However, we do know from the books that she is called Elfrida, but yeah, definitely something worth bringing up. Maybe Bev was adopted. I really like how Kersh just effortlessly glides up the stairs, and this symbolises that something isn't quite right with her. She's not wearing red this time, but she's wearing a couple of shades of blue, which fits in with the periwinkle colours. Periwinkle is a flower, and I do believe we see them outside her house later on, so it's another clue. Either way, Kersh enters and realises that Lily's seen her father, or well, it, posing as her dad. After comforting her about the trip to the sewers, she then sees a photo of the original Bob Gray. He's wearing a headpiece that has the hair attached, and it makes his head look a lot taller. When it took this form, they had no need for props to look like that, so it's just part of their head. It also explains why Pennywise's head looks so bulbous. Terrified by the picture, Kersh can instantly tell she's seen the clown. Lily then spots the costume about the room, including the wig with the bell. We did see Periwinkle wearing it at the start of episode 3, and if you've watched our video on that, then you'll know we guessed it was a young Kersh. And I'm gonna say it, mate, been saying something's off with her for a while? Theory time confirmed, motherfuckers! She also says,
my father was a carnival performer.
And I love how she says Farah, just like when she meets Bev in the book. It stuck with me that. We will not miss those Easter eggs.
My father joined the circus.
Now, as we learn, the photograph that the kids took in episode 3 was actually her. This is a really good reveal, as it explains how the police were also able to see it. The fact it was caught on camera was a clue that it wasn't the real Pennywise. Kersh actually followed them to the graveyard, and this was who Will got the photo of, which also explains why he didn't get completely torn apart by the creature. Kersh also stood outside Will's looking at him, which is a bit weird, mate. But yeah, I'm guessing that she heard he'd had an attack in the day and was like, I'm gonna hang around the house and hope I see a red balloon or something. Now it's from this point that she kind of touches upon her past and talks about her dad's death.
And he was taken from me.
Which she later describes as being a horrible day. Because of this, I believe it was likely the kitchen or ironworks explosion. Even way back when it was shown to us in the library book in chapter 1, we could see her dad's cot outside of it. This was then brought across to the intro of the show as well. This cot was what Periwinkle also sat in front of during 1908, so it does make sense that this was about the area. So I'm guessing that the real Bob Gray was at the ironworks, and then the explosion happened, which he got caught up in. The ironworks led to the death of 102 people, and we know that 88 were kids. So the other 14 were adults. The math is mathin'.
I felt whole again for the first time since that awful day.
Now in the past, I've always assumed that the cart being there was actually it, and this was kind of its calling card. We do know from the photo at the library that the clown was there, as a blurred version was seen amongst the kids. So I always assumed that was its card making an appearance. However, this leads me to believe it was Gray who was at the event, and then he died in the explosion. It then took the car to the sewers, which is where performed sicker dance moves than me, because I'm sick. I'm not feeling very well. Like the thumbs up, you fucking bitch. Kersh then says the carnival moved on after this, but she remained in the town, likely due to her dad's death and no one taking care of her. This then led to Pennywise being its favourite form. In the book, it describes how children's fears were simple and thus easy to conjure up. So it just would use the clown form as simple bait like we saw with Georgie. Hey everyone, so I just want to quickly tell you about Whatnot, which is the perfect platform for collectors like us. Chances are that at some point in my videos, you'll probably notice the Funkos, books, and die-cast cars behind me. Got like a windowsill of Batmobiles over there. Whatnot blew my mind the second I discovered it though, and they've changed how collectors like me and you shop online. If you're new to it, Whatnot's a live stream shopping app where you can buy, sell, and auction anything. They host seller-run streams where you can check out sellers, items, ask questions, chat to them, and all bid from the comfort of your phone. It's super easy, and say you want to get some stuff around Welcome to Derry, you can look up books, either search or scroll through the live stream, find out when that is, and set notifications for it. They've got basically everything you could want on there, from video games to comics, and this allows you to interact directly with sellers and also the community in the thing that you love. I found this amazing seller before that not only did Funko Pops, but they also did mini GT cars as well. The auction was great, and I could check out their items as they dropped them live, and also check out their buy it now stuff while I waited. Just getting back into Pokemon cards as well, and they do openings and auctions. Picked up a number of packs, and it's all super straightforward. Now, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who signed up using my code and adding to my credit. If you want to add to your own credit though, then guess what? Right now, Whatnot are giving everyone who signs up using my link or QR code $15 free to spend if you're in the US and £10 free to spend if you're in the UK. There's no catches, just use the QR code to sign up and you'll get $15 in the US or £10 in the UK. So scan it, because I'm going to buy some more. Huge thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the streams. Now we see Kersh's early days at Juniper Hill and how she overheard kids talking about the clown. Pennywise was talking to them in the pipes and the kids were just seen as being crazy. Much like Lilly. She then took the kid down, which you should probably suspend her medical license, mate. Pennywise then appeared and did his usual acting nice routine, but we do see him drooling during this scene, which is also something that he did to Georgie. In our video in chapter 1, we talked about how this was because of the false teeth they put in that protruded out of Bill's mouth and caused him to drool. However, Muschietti liked the effect so much they decided to keep it in. And yet I feel like Remick in Sinners also drools for that reason as well. Predators often do it before attacking, and it's just a nice little character moment. I love how he has those trademark shiny eyes as well, which are similar to what Georgie thought he saw at the start of chapter 1. The black and white here works really well as well, as the orange eyes and red balloon are the only colour in the scene. Makes the kid's blood at the end even more chilling. He also initially ignores Mrs. Kersh before saying, "You brought a friend," which I'm fucking nailed that impression as well. Kersh calls Pennywise her papa, but when he attacks, they make a run for it. And yeah, leave the kid behind, mate. Sod him. Fuck them kids. Pennywise does that run that we saw before he attacked Patrick Hockstetter and Lilly last week. The scene also reminded me a lot of the funhouse scene in chapter 2, where the kid was stuck behind a mirror while the creature then attacked them. And yet, just like Bill, Kersh is completely helpless here. Pennywise then shifts to the Bob Gray form, which we saw it doing in Kersh's house in chapter 2. He basically pours his heart out and says how he's missed her and how she could hit the thumbs up and make her daddy so proud. But yeah, explaining how if she opens the door, he'll go through it all, exactly what happened. Now this is a wildly different tone from when Bob Gray showed himself to Bev. There he was ridiculing her and saying that she's not changed anything. Now, we don't know exactly what happens from this point, but we do know that after she opens the door, it doesn't end up killing her. Instead, she looks ecstatic and views it as really being her father. This does kind of muddy the waters though, and I know when the trailer dropped for chapter 2, people even thought that the old photo was Pennywise when it was younger. But as we know, it is millions of years old. Now, I believe that Pennywise has basically kept Kersh around because she's someone who can provide it with food. In this story, Pennywise had humans he manipulated as well, and they sort of worked as his agents in the town. Pour exemple, he freed Henry Bowers from Juniper Hill so he could kill a loser's club before they went into the sewers. In the book, Bev's husband Tom Rogan was also someone who ended up working for the creature, and he kidnapped Bill's wife Audra and brought her to its lair. So keeping her alive here, it does make some sense, and she's sort of the vampire's sidekick who does the dirty work during the day. This is even alluded to when Kersh sees a kid being strapped to a bed and we watch a balloon fly by. This is what Henry witnessed in chapter 2 to signify Pennywise was calling to him. So I do feel like that's happening here as well. I don't feel like Kersh realizes she's being used though, but in the end she's just a poor grieving woman who's desperate to connect with the spirit of her father, even if he's killing kids in front of her. Also, side note, the transition from past to present, Muschietti, I tell you mate, he nails these face lineups every single time. did it with Rose earlier in the season, and they did it with Eddie in chapter 2. It was fantastic there as well. But yeah, this could also explain why she was drawn to Lilly, and she might just go after kids who've experienced awful deaths like Lily's father. She does promise not to hurt her, but I don't think she appreciates how dangerous the clown is. Both Mrs. Kersh and Lilly are also kindred spirits as well, as it killed both their fathers, which is like a cycle within a cycle. We see this happening a lot in the franchise, where characters fit certain archetypes that continue down the line. For example, Will is kind of like a prototype Mike, we've got a prototype Lucy's Club, Lily's basically a prototype Feb, and these cycles always continue. Either way, we see further flashes of the clown and can spot a photo of Roosevelt behind Kersh, indicating this is still the 35 cycle. She talks about how a shadow took her father away, which is likely the tribe of Maturin. She says that she has to do what she can to see him again, and that if it sees her as Periwinkle, it'll break him free from the spell. Which is not a great plan. Now, onto the long game plan. So as we know, every cycle ends with a massacre that involves hundreds of deaths. A high body count in the town brings out the clown, and this will allow Kersh to see her father again. If you've been watching our videos, then you'll know we have theorized that Kersh hooking up with Hank is actually part of her endgame. It's possible that she wanted to get him to something like the black spot, and then having that go down will be where she sees her father at. It's a theory we've had for a while. We'll not do theory time, but it's basically been why I think she's been hooking up with Hank. She's raising not only racial tensions, but there's also going to be vigilante justice, which I believe is something she believes will bring out the clown.
Come with me tonight. Let me show you.
After all, it was vigilante justice that ended the cycle in 35. The Bradley gang rolled into town on the run from the law. Trying to buy bullets, the store owner recognized them and said they could come to collect the next day. During this, he did much like what we see Bowers doing later. He told the townsfolk, who all armed up, and then let the gang roll into town. They gunned them down in the middle of the street, and this is what Pennywise appeared at. So Kersh, being aware that this can draw the clown out, might be why she basically wants the black spot to go down.
Wouldn't you do everything you could to make that happen?
We even see her getting ready in her periwinkle getup at the end of the episode, and that's probably to head out to the event. The messed up thing is that she says to Lilly about how she knows she'd do anything to see her dad again. The thing is though, Lilly has seen her dad, like multiple times. Pennywise appearing as dad has been like part of the MO. Beyond Lilly, he appeared as Leroy to Will, and in the novel and other stuff appeared to Ben as his father on the Barrens. In the book, Mike also constantly sees his father. So yeah, it probably learned how well it worked with Kersh and then decided to do it more. Also liked how as Mrs. Kersh tried to use Lily's dad's death to manipulate her, the young girl grabbed at her bag with a pickle company logo on it, which was what her dad worked at. Kersh then says,
"No one who dies here ever really dies."
Now this is actually a callback to chapter 2, as there Kersh also says,
No one who dies here ever really dies.
Lilly then slashes her hand and makes a run for it, unlike the poor kids who never escaped in the past. This leaves a red handprint on her back and kind of marks her for death. Who I do think is going to die though is Mrs. Kersh, and in this series I think we'll see her kill before Pennywise then incorporates her form into its repertoire. Either way, that's the long way around of talking about that scene from the intro, and it's from here that we then cut to the intro. Now, you might notice that every week they do something slightly different. Mark Malink pointed out on our last video how there's a drone that comes towards the end of the song. Like a... For example, here's how it sounds in episode 2 when the title sequence was first played.
I'll be something beyond compare.
Whereas, here's how this same section sounds now.
I'll be something beyond compare.
It kind of shows how the evil's ramping up and is infecting this sweet and innocent seeming song. From here we then cut to Will, who's kinda zoned out. Probably still high as a kite, mate. Leroy's blaming Will for Paulie's death, but was it him who did it? I don't know. Leroy is clearly losing it though, and slipping under Pennywise's influence. We know that it sheds and infects the groundwater of Derry, so as Leroy's been down in the sewers, he's probably been exposed to concentrated it juice. Especially because it doesn't seem to be affecting Charlotte, as she looks at him with a scared expression in the mirror. Leroy talks about how it can't get Will outside of Derry as the base is based outside the limits. Little correction there as well, mate, as I'm not above saying I said something stupid. But yeah, on our last breakdown, I did think that the barrier was around the Forbidden Forest on the outskirts. However, as many of you pointed out, this is the grounds that Derry was built upon, and the barrier itself surrounds the entire town. This has been shown in a map released as part of the promotional material, which shows the location of the pillars. No idea why they had to build it that big, but that's what it is. Seems like it would be better if you just kept it close-knit, but what do I know? No, I will not play Not a Great Plan again. However, I do wonder if the army taking the daggers will adjust the boundaries and mean that it has an even wider hunting ground. Leroy then ends up smacking Will, and I think Will realises it's infecting his father. This is further enforced by the mirror shot we see next. There Charlotte is framed looking at her husband, and if you've watched our breakdown on Psycho, then you'll know that mirrors are often used as a way to show the uncanny and how something's a darker reflection of what it used to be, which I definitely think this shot signifies. Either way, we're starting to see Leroy move towards the apathetic and negative character we saw in Chapter 1. He berated Mike for not using the bolt gun and said how he can either be someone pulling the trigger or someone receiving the bolt. And yeah, he'd clearly been through a lot beyond losing his son. Due to the fact we never heard about Charlotte as well, I'm guessing that she left him. Either way, we cut to Will riding out the base. This is fittingly to Roy Orbison's Running Scared, which yeah mate, you get the song choice there. Just like Maddie, he's running away from trouble. We know Maddie had a very bad home life, which is why he tried to leave Derry. Will's home life is now heading in that direction, and it's likely that all the abusive parents in Derry are made this way by the water. Also love how a plane's flying over him as he exits the base. This symbolises not only freedom but also his dad's now overbearing nature. Secure base as well at his mate, he's broken out twice. We then see missing posters throughout the town, including ones for Lynn Jones and also Teddy Uris, who is of course Stan's uncle. I'm wondering why he's missing though, considering the cinema massacre is all getting pinned on Hank. But I digress, and I'm sure someone smarter in the comments will clear that up. Wanted posters for Hank are also being pinned up about town, including one in Stan Kersh's meats. And he's been given the meat to your missus. This is causing the town to be on the lookout though, and we see people walking the streets with guns, including past the library. This kind of shows the contrast in the town and how it's mounting up to a martial law attitude, where basically law and order is out the window and it's about being a vigilante. Again, as mentioned, this is clearly mirroring the previous cycle, and people are ready to dish out the violence personally. You might also notice that there's a red truck that drives across the street that has some young guys jumping into the back of it. This builds off an earlier shot in the montage, but I think it has a lot of significance. If you've watched our previous breakdowns, then you'll know this colour red often highlights Pennywise's influence. It was all around Alvin Marsh before he attacked Bev, and when Henry Bowers got his knife back, it was also there as well. Both attacked their family, and Phil's dad was wearing it as well. In episode 1, we also pointed out how it was on the truck that rode past Maddie before the family picked him up. That truck is also what I believe we see here. Now, it may or may not be the same one, but just the fact that the red truck's appearing again feels very fitting. Just a nice visual touch on how the evil is now in the town instead of on the outskirts. We then pan up to the Stars and Stripes, which kinda highlights how this idealistic town that was once the American dream is going down a path that people often criticize America for. But not me, mate. I fucking love America. Woo woo! Anyway, we cut to the standpipe with Lilly and the gang discussing the dagger. She talks about how it glowed and caused the creature to back away. However, we also get lots of focus on the bracelet in this shot. Last week, a lot of people in the comments theorized that it's actually the turtle charm that held back the creature, because Lilly did put her bracelet up over her head. But I just want to say all those people are fucking stupid and they're wrong. Especially Mortigun 1451, who I think pointed it out first. No, we love you, and I did think about it quite a lot. Especially as they gave that charm a lot of focus in episode 1. But yeah, the dagger did glow and the pillars have held back the creature, so I do think that they probably work. Lilly is hesitant to hand it over to Will though, and yeah, you can understand why she now has trouble trusting people. Will points out the hieroglyphs on it and that a lot of ancient civilizations tend to have them. Tribes like the Mumkaa had their own type of hieroglyphs which look similar to those on the dagger. They reside in Canada and Maine, so the production team may have been inspired by them for the show. Now, from what we know of the creature, it is a glamour. Hailing from the Macroverse, it crash landed on our planet millions of years ago. I even wonder if this might be made out of the same material as the Dark Tower, but that could be a reach. Either way, Lilly suggests going back into the sewers, which yeah, Ronnie isn't too happy about. Things didn't really go that well last time, and we start to see some fractures in the group. It kind of reminds me a lot of the moment after the Losers Club first attempted to go to Nearbolt Street, which also went badly. But yeah, they had a big argument outside and ended up disbanding. Rich does the classic though, don't you see, this is what it wants, which is like a classic line in these sorts of stories. Rich also later tells Marge they're stronger together, and he's basically doing the staple dialogue for these sorts of things. This line actually comes from the book and was used in the miniseries by a policeman who basically went down to the Barrens and seen the Losers Club building a dam. He was trying to warn them that there was a killer out there and that if they kept in groups, they'd be stronger together. Because yeah, it's less likely that a serial killer is going to be able to come in, abduct one of the kids if they're all hanging around together. So that was kind of his advice. Ronnie also calls Lilly crazy, which clearly gets to her, and most of them leave except Marge and Rich. And the pair get a great moment later on. I feel like Lilly may do something stupid though, as we see her grip the dagger after being called crazy. She's kind of like a pariah, and this group is supposed to be her haven. However, they're now calling her what everyone else has been calling her. Who knows, she might even unite with Mrs. Kersh, but I think if she does, she's going to end up dead. Ronnie does get what she wants though, they don't go to the sewers, and she gets to see her dad. We then catch up with Dick, who's returning to the requisition shed. Upon entering, he goes looking for the bottle straight away. As we know from Dr. Sleep, drinking helps to dull one's shine. In the book, the black spot stuff happened during the Prohibition era, so it was another way to get around the law. But that obviously isn't the case here, even though they're still illegally serving alcohol to kids. Just like Danny, he's turned to the source though, and this is to ignore the horrors of the box now that it's been opened. And Dick is getting plagued with visions. He's seeing water on the floor like he's peed himself, but also like the bathroom scene last week. Also, we have a poster of Sarah Vaughan with an image of her from 1955. She was a prominent jazz singer in the 50s who was likened to Billie Holiday. Cutting to Will and Ronnie, we then see the pair kind of getting close. Now earlier in the season, we did talk about how they might reveal that Ronnie is actually Mike's mother. Pennywise could have got them both in that fire and it would make the story way more personal. In the book, Mike gets more of his story fleshed out, and it's very clear that Pennywise was something that was really personal to him. He went after his dad there, and yeah, clearly he has went after his dad and also his grandfather. However, this would massively change things from the book, in that Ronnie was one of Bev's friends who went missing before the events of the story. Bev heard her calling from the pipes, which is a scene that we get in the first film. And yeah, they specifically say there, I'm Veronica Groga. So I do feel like Pennywise is going to get her, but yeah, I suppose technically it could still kill her in the fire and then have her appear in the pipes. But it does change things quite a lot, really. It's funny though, as both couples almost kiss in this episode, and it's like a much better than the Losers Club where they all just went after that one girl, which I was in a friend group that only had one girl and we're all fancy there. And your boy Kevin, spoilers, he got rejected, but I'm laughing now, I'm a famous fucking YouTuber, fuck you. Now this moment's interrupted by Charlotte, who embarrasses Will by using his middle name. And we've all been there. You messed up my game, Mum, what you do? I would have had that girl if you hadn't messed up my game. I tell you what won't make you look stupid in front of the girl you like though, mate. Our merch store right below the video. There we have our Deadlight shirt based off the poster for The Thing, along with our 2 new Stranger Things shirts. These are our Vecna ones, which you can see behind me, and also our brand new Hellfire Club one as well. As always, the more you buy, the more of a discount you get, so definitely consider buying more, mate. Buy them for yourself so you look good in front of girls. Anyway, she then takes them to the black spot, which is when Ronnie's reunited with her father. Charlotte is also wearing an awesome Velma-looking orange cardigan and scarf, which sits on the colour wheel between red and yellow. It kind of shows how she's doing her own thing and not influenced by Pennywise or the opposite side. Dick is also furious about Hank and he ends up leaving. He's really apathetic and kind of reminds me of Danny at the start of Dr. Sleep. There he was a drunk who was happy looking the other way rather than doing the right thing. This even came to a head when he slept with a woman that he then robbed and saw her kid was reaching for a pile of coke and then just basically fucked off. In the movie, the kid and woman ended up dying, but the book didn't go as dark. However, this was something that haunted the character forever. Eventually, Dick told him he had to do what was right and basically pay the debt he was owed. Dick was someone who could have looked the other way with the Overlook, but he went above and beyond to help out Danny. But Danny kinda had to be shaken out of his apathy, and that's what we see with Dick here. And someone needs to shake that dick, mate. Also love how he correctly guesses that trouble will come with Hank. It's kind of like earlier in the season when he figured out they were going to get chucked out the bar before everyone else. And yeah, it makes sense because he's a sidekick. Will also kind of enviously looks on as Ronnie and Hank are ecstatic to be reunited. Leroy is slowly turning into a piece of shit and is basically edging towards how he is in chapter 1. And you can tell they're kind of envious at what they're seeing here. I like how Leroy said that a friend of his reached out to Mrs. Hanlon and Ronnie asks who, and her dad just says it's a long story. He can't even tell the truth, which is probably for the best as Rich is just saying stuff out loud at school. Remember kids, loose lips sink ships. It's here that we then cut to the standpipe and get the shot of the street with Bangor Chew, which if you've missed our other breakdowns, Bangor is where Stephen King is from and what Derry is based on. Rich has come out to fly a plane and Marge is here changing her bandage. He says he can help as he was a Weblo for a few years. It's apparently the final rank of the Club Scouts of America. But in England we don't have none of that yank nonsense, not in the British clubs. And I love Britain, woo woo! Earlier in the season, Rich said Marge had the best face and was thinking of You'll Never Walk Alone and seeing her walk in slow motion. He's clearly head over heels with her and even thinks that eye wound is the coolest thing he's ever seen. He accepts her for who she is and in turn this makes her embrace it as well. And it's these kind of friendships that are going to make them able to stand up against Pennywise. Rich then throws the plane off the deck akin to how he did during episode 3. Rather than hitting the street though, this then goes into the sewers. I feel like this is foreshadowing their eventual journey and how they'll once more leave the standpipe and go back down there. It's very similar to Georgie's boat and it goes right into the drain to never be seen again. This is something that also happened with Maddie's pacifier in episode 1 and again it's sort of like poetry they rhyme. It also fits in with the theme of the Air Force trying to capture Pennywise. You know, he has a plane. Air Forces have planes. We're going down the drain. Does Screen Crush point that out? No. Go fucking watch them if you don't like amazing Easter eggs like that.
Exactly like that. Here, give me that. Hang up.
Cutting to Dick hitting the bottle, we then see as he's sat in the dock. The door opening causes the light to shine on his face and visually it plays into the notion of shining. Hey? Nah, but The Shining was a horror that was unlike a lot of other films because of how brightly the movie was lit. Normally in horror movies, you know, most things are set at night, in the darkness, that's when the scary stuff happens, but with The Shining, it was all like in the harsh light of day. And thus, hiding in the dark to escape the vision plays nicely off of that. Dick also sees a dead soldier and talks about how he sees dead people. He brings up how his grandma told him about the gift and how to control it. Dick says his grandma's abilities weren't as strong, and in the book, we learn their abilities actually dull the older that they get. This happens across the board with psychics, and it's why the True Knot end up targeting kids, and why Danny was such a prize for the Overlook. So his grandma likely was stronger when she was younger, but she probably locked it away in the box. I do wonder how long it'll be until he sees his grandfather for real though, as we learn in the novels that he used to haunt him as a child. The box idea also comes from Dr. Sleep and it's what Dick taught Danny to do. He then passed it on to Abra and it's a way to lock away spirits so you don't end up encountering them. Just like the end of Dr. Sleep though, it's all been opened and thus the spirits can once more come forth. Dick also says something that I think could potentially clear up the ending of The Shining. He discusses how the dead wander back to where they died. Now for decades and decades there's been lots of interpretations about that final image in The Shining. Shows Jack Torrance at the Independence Day Ball all the way back in 1921. Dr. Sleep then shows Danny meeting his father, who's now replaced Lloyd as the hotel's barman. In the film, Grady tells Jack how he's always been the caretaker, and this created the reincarnation theory. In the film, there's the mention of Delbert Grady, but they also say Charles Grady at one point. Both killed their families in the 20s and 70s respectively, so there was the theory that Jack was the person in between those cycles. If he was reincarnated, then his living soul could also wander back to where he died at the Overlook to continue the cycle. Beyond that, his spirit going back there explains why he was the barman in Dr. Sleep and why so many people who died at the Overlook remain there as ghosts. Jack going back to the hotel as his spirit could also highlight how he was absorbed by the hotel and able to appear in the image at the end. So yeah, just his fleshing out Dick's backstory could explain a lot of unanswered questions. Obviously, you know, Kubrick isn't here to confirm or deny, but I do like the take. Leroy then basically tunes out what Dick's saying and says he has to complete the mission. In the book, Dick was just 19 at the time, and he ended up leaving the army after the fire at the Black Spot, which I do think is what will also happen here. He calls Leroy a bootlicker and basically doesn't want to do any of his orders, even if it could lead to jail time. Leroy is kind of pulling rank though, but I think ultimately this will be what makes Dick step away from the army. Now, despite everyone dying in the sewers, including his best friend, Leroy wants to complete the mission. He started out on the outside, while Dick was the one following orders, doing the dirty work. But after Dick got his box smashed open, he has flipped his views, and no, not like that, you dirty pervert. Leroy now, though, is just like Shaw, and despite people warning him that he's putting people in danger, he wants to finish what he started, at all costs. I do wonder if this is the Derry curse, or if it's to do with his lack of fear. He won't see the risks or dangers, which is why he was such a decorated pilot in the Korean War. However, as he hit Will, I am leaning more towards the Derry curse. Returning home to top off Leroy's great couple of days, he finds Charlotte's packing. His apologies initially work, but then the guy switches to talking about protecting the country, and it shows where his priorities are. Anyone else would be shipping out straight away, but he's kind of torn between his duties to America and his duties to his family, which will ultimately cost him both. The family will likely leave, and the army will get rid of him as well, especially if they find out what really happened to Paulie. Because yeah, Shaw was asking questions last week. She also says,
"You put us in a cage with a goddamn monster!"
which is similar to what he said in episode 5.
You knew that Derry was this thing's hunting ground, and you let me move my family here.
But yeah, that kind of shows just how far he's gone. Anyway, Charlotte tells Leroy Hank's at the black spot and that she's gonna get him out of town and then move back to Shreveport, which apparently I have been pronouncing right. Cutting to Lilly in the classroom, I love the way this opening shot's framed. It kind of puts us in the desk behind her, eagerly watching, almost as if we're Pennywise. Though it's revealed there's a girl there, I do like how, from this shot, you know, there's no one in the desk behind her. Getting flashes of Pennywise in the sewer before it transformed into her dad, it then appears out of the desk to frighten her. The figure says,
"You'll die if you try."
Which is the same message that Pennywise left for Bill and Blood at Bev's after it kidnapped her in chapter 1. It's also what Pennywise told Beverly from the pipes in the book, really hammering home the connection between Lilly and Bev. She then has a massive freak out in class, and yeah, everyone thinks she's mental, mate. And I can see her getting a lobotomy at the end of the season, which will probably stop her from seeing Pennywise finally. We also see the dagger glowing as well, showing that this was indeed a real Pennywise vision, and it's not just in her head. Cutting to the dinner hall, we then see Marge and Rich sharing lunch together. The pair talk about hearing voices coming from the pipes, which is something we've of course seen in lots of different scenes. In the book, we learned that lots of other people experience this, so I'm glad they showed it happening to others. During his investigation, Michael learned that Betty Ripson's mother had heard her daughter's voice as well, and it was just a nice bit of continuity across the characters. Marge then calls Rich a knight, and she's pretty happy about getting an eye patch and now being a pirate. Belonged to Rich's ancestor in Cuba, but it shows Rich is thinking about Marge and how to make her feel better. Best Big Boss cosplay I've ever seen. Gets a bit awkward though when Marge says it's a day and then the patty cakes show up. They basically call everyone a fucking loser who probably watches Screen Crush, but Marge shows her the eye and gains further strength of character. They also call Rich Ricky Ricardo, referring to the character on I Love Lucy. Reminds me a lot of the miniseries where Richie gets one over on Henry and his gang. The bullies and negativity in Derry are what you had to stand up to, and the Losers Club basically beat Pennywise after standing up to Bowers. Rich is also besotted with her, and they fittingly play Pretty Little Angel Eye as she tightly grips onto the back of his bike, which is a song that's a bit on the nose there, mate, with the eye thing. They then arrive at the black spot and we see they're setting up a band, which is what they mention in the book. There they say a couple of players got together and Dick actually played as part of the band. They also call it a clubhouse, and these clubhouses have been throughout the franchise. Not only have we had the standpipe, but the Losers Club also had the bunker on the Barrens. Going to Hank and Ronnie in the back, we then see as Lilly rides out to Kersh's. In the run-up to this, we see a neighbour in the garden staring at her, which is then made worse when she knocks on the door. Sort of like the guy who followed her in the supermarket, and it again is a continuing theme of the franchise. The librarian also did the same thing to Ben in chapter 1, and it shows that Pennywise is always watching.
Always watching.
She's also wearing a Melvin's Pickle brand messenger bag, symbolising she's still not over her father's death. I guess you could say he got in the right pickle. Anyway, it's through this we learn the truth about Kersh. Now, as she tells her story and goes into the history, it also made me wonder if the creature also didn't harm her because it takes the form you give it. This is something they discussed heavily in chapter 2 and how they were able to beat the creature in the end. Basically, it's what you make it, so her seeing it as her father and her father being harmless to her may mean that it wasn't able to hurt her. It feeds on your fears and attacks you through that, so if it's your dad and you're like, whoa, it's me dad's back, you're happy about it, you know, it's opposed to fear and thus Pennywise has no strength. Does that make sense? Is that how she survived? Anyway, Lilly rushes down the street screaming, and it's another betrayal that's clearly getting to her. Loony Lilly, mate. We then see as the party starts to jump up as Ronnie refuses to leave her father or the black spot. Actually got a lot of vibes of the Duke joint from Sinners, which also had racist attacks at it on the first night. There was also a vision where it burned down, but here it's happening literally. I do think that's all coincidental though, as Sinners was shooting around the same time that this was. But maybe, you know, the black spot story from the book might have influenced Ryan Coogler. Either way, Hank has the talk with Will in the back room. The pair bond over talking movies, which is of course Hank's favourite pastime. Hank embarrasses Ronnie by saying she has a new gentleman friend, and Will also says his favourite movie is War of the Worlds, which is most likely the 1953 adaptation of the novel, and while Will probably likes it due to the sci-fi themes, it's also about aliens that land via meteor on Earth, so it does fit quite well with Pennywise's backstory. Over at the Falcon, we then see as the Vigilantes are mounting up to go and hunt Hank. I want to see the Falcon's scores on the doors as well, mate, because those pickled eggs do not look hygienic. But yeah, the gang here includes not only Mr. Kersh, but also Phil's father. He's clearly been let out of jail by Bowers, who's complicit in the attack tonight. Bowers comes in and says he knows where Hank's hiding, and we learn a lady called in a tip. Which, yeah, considering she was having an affair with Hank, seems like she's been planning this all along. Bowers has also been relieved of his duties, and thus he can't arrest Hank. Bowers ends up joining the mob later though, and judging by his clothes, he's the one in the Dracula mask. Now, Bowers being behind this attack alters things from the book, but kind of ties into it as well. In case you don't know, the source material didn't have Bowers as a police officer, and instead, Henry's dad Butch was just a simple old farmer. In that, Butch Bowers burned down Will Hanlon's chicken coop and erased this attack on the farm. They took that out for the films, and of course had Bowers as a policeman. So the farm attack was changed, but Bowers here doing the fire at the black spot kinda plays off of it. The fact he's in a Dracula mask also plays into the idea of Pennywise. King tends to write lots of characters who are vampires, but not exactly in the way we think. Instead, stuff like this, The Outsider, Dr. Sleep, they all have vampiric characters who feed on people beyond just drinking blood. Whether it's sucking steam or Pennywise psychologically torturing someone to feed on their fear, they're all vampires when you think about it technically. So Bowers wearing the mask of a vampire plays off it really well. Pennywise also appeared as Dracula in the book, albeit the Nosferatu-looking Kurt Barlow who came from Salem's Lot, which was also written by Stephen King. Mr. Kersh then mentions the train yards, and in the book, this was where Eddie first saw a homeless man, which inspired Pennywise to haunt him as a leper. Now in the book, the fire at the black spot is quite a lot different. In the novel, it was carried out by the Legion of White Decency, who weren't happy that the black citizens had their own place to go. We have seen their badge in the series before, and this popped up on the Paul Bunyan sign during episode 1. In the work, black citizens weren't allowed to drink in the bars in town, and on the base they were only allowed to drink Coke. So Fuller gave them this place to go. The Legion then arrived wearing white hoods and set fire to the place while trapping people inside. Hank Rogan wasn't part of the story at all, and the main focus was just on Will and Dick. There also, no one knew of his psychic abilities. Now in the book, it's Will who's the soldier, with him being the one who leaves the army to work on the farm. He tells his son Mike about what happened, and this is while Mike's investigating Pennywise. Will's riddled with cancer and telling the story about the black spot on his deathbed, whereas in the film, yeah, we know he died in a fire. However, he says that in the army he was subjected to lots of racism by the higher-ups and forced to dig, and then fill, and then dig, and then fill, and then dig another hole, over and over and over again. The officer who did this got in a lot of bad trouble, and it was suspected the black spot burning was part of retribution for this. Either way, that night the Legion arrived, and Pennywise used this as a time to attack. Showing up as a giant bird, it swooped down and tried to grab those fleeing from the blaze, both patrons and Legion members alike. "'Twas a bird," he said, "right over the last of those running men, a hawk maybe. What they call a kestrel, but it was big, never told no one. Would have been locked up. The bird was maybe 60 feet from wingtip to wingtip. It was the size of a Japanese zero, but I seen its eyes, and I think it seen me." And the cold was worth it just for how fucking good reading that section was. That sound fucking amazing. But on a sadder note, it was a horrendous event, but not really driven by the hunt for Hank that we have in this series. Will was also more of an optimist and contemplated that it might have been an accident, even to the point where he thought the clan was shouting, "Come out! Come out," and that they were trying to warn them there was a fire inside. He believed that the gas stove had been left on, and then the clan had gone in with torches completely unaware. Which, yeah, I don't know, Will, I don't know. I do wonder if that's why they also don't wear white robes, though. However, Will did see some positives in the aftermath, and, after the fire, the cycle ended, and he said the whole town banded together to look after the survivors. There were dozens of people left with serious burns, but it seemed like a turning point in the town. People were really ashamed, and even the worst of the Legion disbanded after witnessing the horror firsthand. Again, it was of course the end of the cycle, and was looked back as being a terrible time in the town. After hearing this tale from Will, Mike then returns to the library and he ends up falling asleep on his desk. When he awakens, he sees muddy footprints walking from the door to where he was asleep that don't go beyond there or return to the door. Like the figure just walked in and then simply disappeared. All there is a red balloon tied to his desk, which pops and then ends the black spot interlude. Now in the show, we see Dick arriving after going through like that black void again, and it seems like his sixth sense is being dulled by the liquor, as we mentioned earlier. In the book, he actually helped people escape the fire as he knew which way to go to survive, because of his psychic abilities basically. Now I do wonder if the drinking here will cause some problems and he won't save anyone, which will cause guilt down the line. This could be why he chooses to help Danny by returning to the Overlook Hotel, only to be killed in the movie, whereas in the book he survives. But we don't know what continuity they're definitely going to do. Some people have said they're going with the book one though, but yeah, let's see. Marge and Rich are then given some spicy cokes, and you've supplied alcohol to a minor there, mate, so that's you banned from YouTube. Expect a million drama videos on you son of a bitch. They then get Rich to play in the band, and the kid really takes to it. It's like Marty McFly playing at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
You know that new sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this!
I do wonder as well if Styx will sort of become like Rich's totem, and this will protect him against Pennywise. In the book, we had stuff like Stan's bird book, which he used as a sort of psychic shield as a way to overcome the creature. Like he has a bit where he holds up the book and he shouts out bird names, and Pennywise is like, oh no, whoa, and disappears. We also have a singer doing scat, not like that, you dirty bad boy. And while this is going on, Mrs. Kersh starts getting dressed. It's a bit like the bit in Oppenheimer when he puts on his hat and stuff. It's kind of like Batman getting ready. We get focus on her hands as well, which has been cut across it from Lilly's dagger before. This is actually really relevant to the story though, and it's something we've seen before. The Losers Club cut their hand just like this when doing the blood oath at the end of chapter 1. In many ways, Kersh has also sworn an oath to her father that will result in blood, so it's a really fitting moment. I also love the way the attic's lit up here with a triangle as well. It almost creates a yellow tent, which is of course what Matty, aka Pennywise, appeared in last week. Outside, we then see Bowers and his gang arrive. The masks have some cool Easter eggs though, as not only do we have Dracula, but we also see Frankenstein's monster. The Universal monsters were heavily used in the book, as that's basically what King said scared him as a kid. Throughout it, Pennywise also appeared as the werewolf, mummy, creature from the Black Lagoon, not the Blue Lagoon, you cheeky bad boy, and even this monster here. This form is what killed Belch in the book, but sadly it wasn't used in chapter 1 and 2. They also have a sad hobo clown, which might be Emmett Kelly. He was a circus performer who played the persona of Weary Willie, and it kind of went into how clowns could be more than just comedic happy figures, much like Pennywise. There are also 2 Native American masks, which again fits in with the story, albeit very of their time in their portrayal. Anyway, we end the episode knowing the fire's probably going to go down next week, and that will likely be what happens throughout episode 7. And it's going to be bad. For now though, we go to the spoiler section of the video in which we talk about the trailers for the upcoming entries. And if you don't want to know, turn off now. I actually really appreciate you sitting this long. Normally I make a joke like, fuck off, you haters. But I appreciate you sitting through my terrible voice this week, and just know I'm hurting. I'm getting through it. We're pushing. And I'm doing it just for you, mate, so I appreciate the thumbs up. Anyway, firstly, I want to talk about Kersh holding her hand out in the opening of the episode. In the trailers, Pennywise does this amongst the blaze and holds out his hand for an unknown character. It says, "Take my hand," which is very similar to the moment at the beginning. Mrs. Kersh also holds her hand out to Lilly before it's slashed. Part of me wonders as well if this isn't actually Pennywise, but is Mrs. Kersh, especially combined with the cleaver, as she'd have access to this due to her husband. If you have watched the teaser as well, then you may have spotted another big piece of foreshadowing. An ice cream van goes by Will as Ronnie talk on the street, and it looks similar to the one they use in the trailer. It's seen again as they drive off with the kids around it. Also in the trailer, again, we do see Pennywise holding a cleaver, and it is at what seems to be the black spot. Not only is Mr. Kersh part of the posse to capture Hank, but he has said how kids call him Stanley the Cleaver. So this could be the kids / Charlotte seeing Pennywise at the fire and him taking on the form of Mr. Kersh. He has of course taken on the form of Bob Gray and Mrs. Kersh as well in chapter 2, so taking on the form of Mr. Kersh, Just makes sense. Anyway, that wraps up the video, and huge thank you once more for joining me. Can you believe as well it's been 6 weeks, mate? That's like a summer's holiday worth of breakdowns on a show. But yeah, huge thank you as always for joining me, and it's crazy seeing some of you saying that coming here right after the episode is now part of your weekly routine. So thank you. I did kind of go back and forth on like, do I just not record the video this week and just take it easy because I sound like shit? But I thought, you know what, there's people out there, they watch the episode, the next thing they do is come to heavy spoilers to see the breakdown, and I don't want to let any of you guys down because I appreciate all you guys' support, and yeah, this one's for you. I know there's like a reputation that men milk it all the time, and I feel like I'm doing that now, but thanks a lot, it has been bad. But yeah, please drop a like on the video and drop a comment with all your thoughts below. If you want to follow us on Instagram as well, then make sure you check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel, you also get early access to videos? This week it was It Chapter 1, that was our early video. The week before that was Zodiac, and there's lots of ones that we do every single week. It costs just 99 cents a month. Really try to set it at a low price, just 99 cents a month, less than $12 for the year, and it gets you early access to a big breakdown every single week, so thank you for your support. Now, if you want something else to watch, we've got a breakdown of Stranger Things on screen right now. Yes, Season 5 is in full, well, not full swing, it's like in part 1 swing. But if you want to know what happens in that, then click the video on screen right now. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through this one though. I've been your host, Paul. You've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.